Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Realm of History. Special Sunday night live review action here, getting ready for the Chapter 6 quiz. We got the Roman Empire this week. Hey, check in with me in the comments. Make sure that you let me know that you're here. What I really do is I look at who shows up and kind of chart how well they do on the quiz paper. So it gives me some really good data. But I think these are really helpful for many of you. And utilizing of course, the format and the question and answer session tonight will be key. I want to get right into the live agenda. Tonight, we're going to go like we always do with a little bit of key advice. We'll go over some selected terms, figures, maybe a few places. We'll get into some AP information, some specific clues and advice that get ready for the AP portion, which will be the most challenging part. Number 4, we'll have question and answer time and maybe a little bit of final advice today. Let's start off with, of course, our key advice. Number 1, make sure that you're studying your notes. I can't stress this enough. Hopefully, you did the reading, like I had mentioned, and hopefully, you are reading through your notes. Of course, each section, there were 5 sections in this chapter. You had 2 review days, plus 2 weekend days, plus tonight, and even tomorrow morning, we'll give you a little bit of work as well. So there's a lot to be done, and hopefully, you are following through with the advice. Hey, take notes off of this session, right? Add the things that are said to the review sheet. If you have any questions, mark them on your review sheet. Ask those questions tonight. Get those things answered so that you can go to bed feeling confident and ready to go for tomorrow. I want to remind you to pray for the right things, though. Remember, like a lot of you get nervous for these quiz papers, and that's good. I really like that you get nervous. That means that you care, and I think that's a really good thing to have. But I want to put things into perspective as well. This quiz, it's nothing more important than anything else you have going on in your life. You want to make sure that you say your prayers for your health and safety of your family. Ask the good Lord for guidance. I always teach my athletes and my students to never pray for victories or success in the classroom, but just please ask, for guidance to use your talents to the fullest. You've been blessed with so many great talents, and you're so fortunate to be where you are, to have nerves for a quiz instead of, like we always say, nerves or worries about other things that are more important, like where you gonna, get food next, or where are you gonna get shelter. Some people in the world are doing that right now as we speak. So kind of put things in perspective and make sure you thank the good Lord for all the blessings that have been bestowed upon you, of course. Number 3, you got to be here now. It's more evident than ever on a Monday quiz. You did get 2 review days plus the weekend, but Monday quiz, you're going to have so much thrown at you on Monday. You're getting back in the swing of things. Make sure you get your rest, but you got to be here now. When you come in, to the realm, you got to pop in history, chapter 6, Roman Empire, making sure that you're ready to go. Tomorrow, listen, it's going to be a long quiz. We got the content portion, 40 questions. AP portion is going to be the longest. You've got the extended response questions. So here's my advice tonight. Make sure that you have your outlines and your review sheet stapled together. Now, the order of how that would be is going to be review sheet with your name on it. That's the blank review sheet. This page, okay? Then you're going to have your, of course, numbered and defined terms and figures next, followed by sections 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Section 2 was the only one that had a handout. You can put that handout for section 2 after your notes for section 2. So it'd go section 1, section 2, section 2, printed notes, 3, 4, 5. That's what I'm looking for tomorrow. Have that stapled tonight. Have that organized. So, it's going to be probably 1 minute of prep time tomorrow, just enough time for me to pass back last week's paperwork, and then we're ready to roll. Number 4, hey, make sure you say thank you to your parents. This is really important. They do a lot for you. Make sure you show your gratitude to them. If you need to go tell them right now, like that's more important than anything that I'm talking about. So go tell them that you love them. Go tell them thank you for all the blessings that have been bestowed upon you. Make sure that you do that often. Time is short in life and you don't get these moments back. So you got to take advantage of those things. Finally, number 5, hey, meet the challenge. My intent is to challenge you. I would say that the content portion, not going to be really too hard. There's a couple of questions that I think are difficult, but the hard part is going to be the AP part. You got to apply your knowledge there. The content part is like, hey, do you know your stuff? The AP part is, do you know your stuff and can you apply it now? So that's the key. And that's how the AP portions are supposed to be, because they want to get you ready for the college level of thought process, which involves critical thinking and analysis and argumentation, which If you weren't paying attention on Friday, if you didn't show up, if you were in the meeting but not really being here now, you're missing out. I'm not going to go over that stuff again too much. Want to make sure that we can formulate an argument. I taught that extensively on Friday. Okay, next, I think we're going to get into the key terms next. Hey, if you're finding these sessions to be helpful and you haven't subscribed, hey, give me a little subscription, help me out. Let's work with the YouTube algorithm there. And then also go ahead and like this video and see if that can help us out as well. You know, the realm is a family, so we take care of each other. Okay, let's start off with the aqueducts, right? Aqueducts are these bridge-like structures or channels that brought water from the distant sources like the mountains into Roman cities and towns. Here's one thing about the aqueducts. They did often make use of the architectural design, which was known as the arch. And the arch, if you remember, was something that was culturally diffused from the Etruscans of northern Italy to the early Romans. So the aqueducts brought fresh water to Roman towns and cities. Very major development, actually. Next are the plebeians. When you're talking about Roman social class, Roman society, the plebeians are the common folks. They're the common people of Rome. Your farmers, your artisans, your merchants. They don't have a great deal of wealth. They don't have a great deal of power, but they do have the majority in population, which when you have a republic where there's voting, that does give you power. And so the plebeians and the other group, which we're going to go over next, the patricians, constantly in a power struggle. The patricians were your wealthy folks. Okay, they're the wealthy citizens of Rome. They're your large landowners, your nobles, if you want to call it. There's not many of them, but they hold the majority of the power. Okay. All right, moving our way down the list, we're going to go into the Pax Romana. Pax Romana means Roman peace. It's really referring to a 207-year period in Roman history from 27 BC all the way to 180 AD. Most important thing to know is that this is a time of peace and prosperity. Good trade, the spread of Christianity was going on. The Roman road networks are being built. The trade networks are being established both on land and sea. So the fact that there was peace during this time, for the most part, led to a lot of advancements in the Roman Empire. One thing I would say is that don't think of this as being zero war or lack of war at all. There were some small battles. There's some, wars in the region known as Germania against the Germanic tribes and some Roman expansion into Jerusalem region, which they called Judea at that time, Egypt, so on and so forth, but not anything major. Okay. And that's why it's known as a time of peace and prosperity. Next term is speaking of the Roman military, legion. This is the largest military division in the Roman army. It's 5,000 heavily armed foot soldiers or cavalry, which are soldiers on horseback. So legions, military generals like Julius Caesar, Octavian, Pompey, Scipio, right? Mark Antony, they would have had legions. They would have controlled legions, okay? Thousands of men. So this gives them some form of organization. Then legions were divided up into smaller units called centuries. A century is a smaller division within the Roman military. It's made up of 80 soldiers. I know that's confusing. You were probably thinking it's made up of 100 soldiers, or you're probably thinking, oh, this is 100 years. Not really 100 years. It's more focused on military, and it's 80 soldiers. The classic Roman soldier was known as a centurion, which, if you were paying attention Friday, I showed you that in the slideshow. Next, we're going to talk about a major event in one of the Roman provinces called the Jewish diaspora. One thing that the Romans did is they conquered the Jewish homeland of Judea in 6 AD. And one of the things about this is that many Jewish practitioners in that region rebelled. They took up arms and they tried to drive the Romans out. In response to this, the Romans forced them out of the homeland, which is the Jerusalem region. So they were dispersed during the Jewish diaspora. Around this same time, Christianity is developing. And we want to talk about section 3 a little bit. What I'm really focusing on with this quiz is understanding how Christianity spread, right? Spread due to a lot of factors, some of which can be the epistles or letters of Paul. Like when you go to Mass and you hear letter of St. Paul to the Corinthians, these are letters that Paul wrote to people in Corinth or any other place that it says. He wrote it throughout the Mediterranean region. Okay. And he wrote these letters to try and gain converts, try to get people to convert to Christianity, which ultimately led to the spread of Christianity. I would also say that Roman trade in and throughout the Mediterranean region spread Christianity after Constantine accepts and allows this faith in the empire through cultural diffusion, which is a term that we know is very, very important to our class. I'd also say the Roman roads and the trade network, and then also, of course, just having Constantine accept Christianity and welcome that as a practiced faith within the Roman Empire was a big deal. Then I think, I didn't write this on the screen, but I also think if you look at the ideologies of Christianity, how Christ was accepting of all peoples and welcomed people who were sinners or people who needed help, people who were poor, kind of opened up to a lot of different people there. Okay. Remember, though, that Christianity sprouts out of the Jewish faith, right? The first monotheistic faith. And so very much intertwined Judaism and Christianity. Next, let's go to the Aeneid. The Aeneid, you can see it spelled many different ways, but the Aeneid is an epic poem by the Roman author Virgil. It was basically a continuation of Homer's Iliad. It's about after the Trojan War, a soldier named Aeneas and some of his adventures going forward after the Trojan War. Speaking of war, got the Punic Wars. This is a series of wars that lasted over hundreds of years, 150 years of series of wars between Rome and Carthage over trade. In particular, what they were really fighting over are trade routes in the Mediterranean Sea. Carthage was located in North Africa, as we learned. Rome is located in Italy, which is right along the Mediterranean Sea. They're very close. They're both trading empires. So they went into war to try and establish and fulfill those trade networks. Okay, those are all of the key terms I'm going to go over today. I'm going to get into some of the key figures today. Key figures are important in this chapter because they had such a big impact. And we know a little bit more about them now that we have writing and things of that nature. So let's take a look at Constantine. Constantine was the Roman emperor that accepted Christianity. But also, I think you got to know that he moved the capital city from Rome to the city of Byzantium, which was actually in modern-day Turkey, really close to Greece. The city was later renamed Constantinople. So just a few things that you want to know about Constantine. How about your guy Diocletian, right? Diocletian ruled Rome with an iron fist. As an emperor, he did double the size of the military, but he splits the empire into two separate halves. One half is called the Latin-speaking West, and the other half is the Greek-speaking East. I will say that toward the end of Diocletian's reign, that eastern side, which was Egypt, Turkey, Greece, parts of the Middle East, that region was actually more wealthy than was the West. Okay, next, let's go into Hannibal, famous military general from Carthage, which we learned was a city-state of North Africa. He played a major role in the Punic Wars by attacking Rome. In that attack of Rome, he led over 50,000 soldiers and 60 war elephants in a surprise attack on the Roman Empire from the north. He basically took boats over what's called the Strait of Gibraltar, which is in between Morocco, North Africa, and Spain. And then he marched through the mountains and attacked Italy from the north. There's a map about this in your book. It's on the important pages on your review sheet. That war that Hannibal was having a lot of success against Rome ended with a major move by a Roman general named Scipio, very daring Roman general named Scipio. He defeats Hannibal while Hannibal's in Italy, he takes a large force and attacks Carthage. He's like, well, if Hannibal's whole army is here, what's he going to do if we attack his home city of Carthage? This gets Hannibal to leave Italy to try and defend his homeland, and ultimately the Romans defeat Carthage in that Punic War. Next, we're going to take a look at Tacitus. Tacitus was a Roman historian, right? We love history guys and gals. And so with Tacitus, we got to understand that he's a Roman historian that focused on presenting facts accurately and honestly in his books. We didn't talk about the name of his books, but it was in the reading. He called his major book, which was an extensive, accurate history of Rome, The Annals and Histories of Rome. All right, next we're going to go to Nero. In section 2, there's a chart that has good emperors and bad emperors. Nero's on the bad list, all right? He's not getting any presents from Santa. He's one of Rome's historically bad emperors. He was known for persecuting Christians and calling for the death of many other groups as well. Okay, next, let's go into some AP info, some AP advice, and then we'll get into the question and answer session. So think about what questions you might want to get answered tonight. I am willing to answer any appropriate question, especially ones off of the review sheet. Some questions I may say, hey, you don't need to know too much about this. One thing I don't want to do is answer the same question about 7 times. So please make sure that you're being here now and paying attention. Okay, AP information. Remember, I think the AP portion is going to be the most challenging part. There are 5 MCQs and 1 extended response. So let's talk about this extensively tonight. The first MCQ, the prompt or stimulus, is a map. The prompt and stimulus is a map, okay? It's about Roman trade. There was a map in the book about Roman trade, so that's a useful tool for you. But I would say you need to understand how important the Mediterranean Sea was to Roman trade and the Mediterranean region. You also need to focus on what's the difference between raw goods and finished goods, okay? So let's take this into consideration. A raw good is just bare cotton, okay? Nothing manufactured with it, just bales of cotton. Finished good or manufactured products would be a t-shirt, okay? That's an example. Now, in the Roman world, it would be maybe gold and silver would be the raw material or the raw good. The finished good would be coins or jewelry or something along those lines, okay? So piecing those things together, thinking about Roman trade and its importance, and then the regions and territories, what items were coming in, what items were going out, that's going to be very helpful for the first prompt and stimulus, which has 3 questions related to it. I'm looking at it right now. 3 questions on the first prompt, which is a map about Roman trade. The second on the backside for me is going to be a document. So it's going to be what's called a secondary source. So it's a excerpt or a 2 to 3 paragraph selection from a secondary source, which is a textbook. So it's another author's viewpoint about something that happened in Roman history. There's 2 questions there, and it deals with how the Roman government interacted with religions. And we know the Roman religion was polytheistic and you were supposed to worship the Roman emperor, right? But there were 2 monotheistic faiths that were coming into play here and had a big impact on the Roman Empire. Judaism, the Hebrew faith, and then also Christianity, okay? So one of the things that we need to think about here is how did the Roman government interact with those 2 new burgeoning faiths? Well, really, Judaism has been around for a long time. Christianity is a newer faith, right? So at the time that we're learning about. We also have to remember that both of these groups, Jewish practitioners of Christianity, they refused to worship the emperor and they refused to worship Roman gods in public, which led to many times their persecution and death. So that's going to be a big clue in understanding how to deal with those last 2 questions there. Now for the big question, the extended response. I taught you how to formulate an argument, right? On Friday using T or ACE. You need to refer to your notes on how to do that, but you need to formulate an argument here. So I'm going to have a question. You need to answer the question. First line needs to answer the question directly, okay? Remember, the topic at hand is going to be what is the most important factor that led to the decline and fall of the Roman Empire. So your topic sentence, I'm going to do the topic sentence for you right now. It needs to be the most important factor that led to the fall of the Roman Empire was, X. You need to fill in the X, but that's not it. You then need to provide historical evidence which supports your thesis or answer, your claim. Okay. But that's not it. You then need to talk about how your evidence significantly or certainly proves your answer. So remember T, topic sentence, evidence, analysis, or ACE, answer, cite evidence, explain. So you need to use that formula to formulate your argument, and you really need to write at least one paragraph, which is 4 sentences to me, but I'm really suggesting you write about 2 sentences. This is the reason why it's paramount. It's imperative, if you want to say, that you come to class ready. I want to pass back your notes from last chapter and collect your new ones. Bam, let's go into the quiz, right? That's the goal. Okay. Ballers and ballerinas. We're going to go into the questions. I see there's 50 comments already, so let me filter through these bad boys. Remember, you do need to make sure that you have filled out. I see some questions about the AP College Board site. You got to make sure that you sign up for that. I don't know about the parent name and number. If you don't put it on and it lets you in, there you go. So you should be good to go there. Okay, let's see. Thank you for look at that. Look at that. We got my good friend Mr. Bobby Klaus supporting the realms of family. He says, good luck on the quiz. He even knows the lingo. Sign of strength by Mr. Klaus. Great teacher, great coach. Love that guy, man. All right, I'm just looking for questions now, seeing who's checked in. If you haven't checked in and you came on late, check in with me. Let me know that you're here. All right, let's see. No, Sir Ducky, I don't think you're getting any presents from Santa, man. All right, here we go. Let's see. What battles should we know? You know, there's the Battle of Actium, which happened in 31 BC. That was basically Octavian versus Mark Antony and Cleopatra. That's a big one. There's a battle called the Battle of Zama, Zama, which is where Scipio defeated Hannibal. But actually, in general, there's not very many questions about specific battles, to be honest with you. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. The essay possibilities are going to be for that extended response. That's going to be on the AP part this week. Is there going to be a word bank? There will be a word bank because it's just matching. So there's multiple choice and matching on the content. And yes, I can't do a matching without a word bank. Yeah. Okay, who are the Germanic peoples? The Germanic peoples they're not just from Germany, okay? So Germany is like one of the regions where the Germanic peoples were from, but the Romans called anything like north of their border Germania. Germanic peoples would be like anybody from Germany, Poland, Russia, Ukraine. Even they considered the Huns Germanic peoples. And there was also a group from North Africa called the Vandals, right? They were also considered Germanic peoples. Some of the specific names you might want to know: Visigoths, Ostrogoths, Vandals, Huns, Celts, Britons, all of those different groups which are on the map of invasions, got all these red lines coming at Rome. Those are the people that you need to know as the Germanic peoples. Yeah, something like that. Can I go over the Romance languages and what we need to know about it? Well, the Romance languages are derivatives of Latin. So languages that are used by the Romans, that's why it's called the Romance language. It doesn't have anything to do with like lovey-dovey stuff, but Spanish, Italian, French, those are some of the big Romance languages. Portuguese would be on that list, okay? Those are some of the big Romance languages to know about. All right, here's a good question now. Let's talk about this. For the essay, are we just saying the most important factor to the fall, or talk about multiple factors? The question is going to be framed that you need to be specific on what is the most important factor. Now, there's really no one single answer here. So it's more about how you frame your argument than having a right or wrong answer. This is not a math class. This is not a science class. So in history, there's always multiple perspectives. What matters is how you defend your argument. That's the key. So let me talk about this now. You do need to know other factors because to truly prove that your factor is the most important, you need to say why your factor outweighs others. If you can't mention two or three others, then you're not going to get the points, right? So, yes, you do need to know multiple factors, but in your statement, your answer needs to be the most important factor and why. That's the key. The why factor here is the most important part. What do we need to know about the first and second triumvirate? Who was in it? And what did they do? How did they end, right? First triumvirate, you got Julius Caesar, you got military general named Pompey, and you've got the money man named Crassus. It ended in a civil war between Caesar and Pompey. Caesar wins. Senate declares him dictator for life. After Caesar was assassinated in 44 BC, we got the second triumvirate. That's Octavian Augustus, Mark Antony, and a guy named Lepidus. Second one also ended in jealousy. Remember, your boy Mark Antony fell in love. He was seduced by the Queen Cleopatra from Egypt. They have a love affair. Octavian's like, what's going on? Why is this guy aligning with Egypt, trying to take me out? I'm a Roman guy. So they fight. Octavian ends up winning, right? So that's what you need to know about the first and the second triumvirate in a very basic sense. Like I'm just giving you the basic understanding there. No, summarizing the fall of Rome is going to be on the AP part. Okay. AP part. Everything. Yeah, I gave you guys a printed sheet that had 20 to 25 points about Julius Caesar, right? That's why I printed it off because we would have been writing forever, right? So you need to know everything that's on that printout sheet, not only about Caesar's military expeditions, not only about his political reforms, his religious reforms. You need to know everything that's on that sheet. Yeah. No. The review sheet is number and define the key terms and the key figures. Well, Master Jaden, so there's only one extended response. And I told you which one it is, which it is the summarizing the fall of Roman Empire. And I said, you got to focus on the most important factor. So this one's not going to be on there. Yeah. Okay. So here we need to focus on trade, right? Trade, cultural diffusion, transportation, all the different regions that are around the Mediterranean Sea and the impact there. Just answered that one. Already answered that one. I already answered this one as well as I went through Nero on the key terms today. You need to know that he was a bad emperor, that he persecuted many Christians and called for the death of many other groups that were not in the norm. Rome, I mean, that's the whole chapter. So I can't answer that one. I mean, you got to know everything that we covered in the chapter about Rome. Carthage, you want to know that they were a major trading city-state from North Africa that fought against Rome in the Punic Wars. And then Pompeii was a major city that we learned was destroyed by a volcanic eruption of Mount Vesuvius. And one of the key things about this that we need to know is that because the city was semi-preserved from the ash that covered it for so long and prevented oxygen from getting to it, it really told us a lot about how people lived and what type of art they utilized, things of that nature. Well, I went over Scipio also in the key terms section today. So, I think everything I said about Scipio there, about how he was the person who defeated Hannibal by attacking the city of Carthage while Hannibal was still in Italy. All right, so this AP portion is still going to be 10 points. It is longer. You got 5 MCQs. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make the MCQs worth 1 point each. So you're going to get 5 points on the MCQs. Then I'm going to make the extended response worth 3 points on its own. I'm going to front you 2 points. So the lowest you could get on this AP is 2 out of 10. Hopefully nobody does that. Battle of Zama is basically Carthage versus Rome. End of the Second Punic War. Scipio defeats Hannibal and burns Carthage to the ground. So when we think about the Huns were from Central Asia, right? They actually started to attack the Germanic tribes, which then pushed the Germanic tribes into Roman territory, which caused conflict between those two groups. Okay. Now, one of the things that we really need to think about there is they also had Attila the Hun later on, who was a major leader. He put together a army of Huns that were over 100,000 strong. They actually invaded both the western half of the Roman Empire and the eastern half, caused a lot of destruction until Attila's death. After Attila died, they really didn't pose much more of a threat to the Roman Empire. However, the Germanic tribes, who the Huns had pushed down into Roman territory, continued to attack. Actually, I told everybody they were supposed to do this by last Friday. So if you haven't done, you are late on that. It was supposed to be done by Friday. I just went over Attila. As I was just talking about the Huns. Attila was the most famous chief of the Huns. I also just went over this just a minute ago, but it was Pompeii, the city of Pompeii. For me, I consider a paragraph 4 sentences. So you got to have at least 4 sentences. If let's say you used T or ACE, this is like doing the bare minimum. So I'm not promoting doing this, but here's how a 4 sentence paragraph could technically answer the question. Your first sentence would be your topic sentence or your answer to the prompt. Your second sentence could be a list of key evidence. A third sentence could be more evidence, or a third and fourth sentence could be evidence and an analysis, or explaining how your evidence supports your claim or answer. What is an Etruscan? Well, the Etruscans were native to northern Italy, okay? And they had a big influence on Rome. They're one of the early 3 groups that basically inhabited the Roman region, and they influenced the Romans through cultural diffusion of the arch, which was a architectural style or engineering style that we've learned about, right? And we also have the Roman alphabet, which was taken from the Etruscans as well. So all of the Roman numerals that we use in our outlines, that comes from actually the Etruscans. Yeah. Yeah, you too, Master Julius. We miss you, buddy, in the realm. But good evening to you as well. I'm still here for questions. We have a lot of time left over, so I'm ready and willing to answer any questions. I'm a little worried because it seemed like we had a lot of questions that I definitely went over in the key term section tonight. So I hope everybody's been paying attention. I think that could be an issue if you're not paying attention. Good luck on this quiz tomorrow. I'm a little worried. You guys have got me a little bit worried now, but I have faith in you. We have a lot of time until the quiz happens. Who was Hannibal? Hannibal was a key Carthaginian general that fought against the Roman Empire by invading with, as I said, about 50,000 troops and 60 war elephants. But he lost at the Battle of Zama to Scipio, who we talked about how Scipio invaded Carthage to get Hannibal to leave Italy. Yeah, so the A in it is on your review sheet. So you definitely need to know that it was a extension of the Trojan War, which is what we talked about when I went over it in the key terms tonight. And we talked about how Virgil wrote that. And also, I think it's important that you understand that it was a continuation of the Iliad, which is by Homer, and it talked about Aeneas, who was a soldier that kind of went on an adventure after the Trojan Wars ended. Cleopatra did rule Egypt along with her brother. So Cleopatra and her brother were kind of like the dual rulers of Egypt. Yeah, so she was really the more influential one, to be honest with you. So I already said that this question's not going to be on there. Yeah, once again, this is not going to be on there. If this were to be on there, you would have two essays, right? Because it says essay possibilities, and I already told you which essay there was going to be. So that one's not going to be on there. Yeah. Let's see here. Yeah, there were other rulers after Constantine. Constantine's the first, right? So that's why he's so important, because he's the first emperor to embrace Christianity. So after that, the other ones are, yeah, they kept the tradition going, but Constantine's the one you really want to know about. Trajan, some of the other ones that you could mention are found on that chart on section number 2. Okay, let's go into the textbook now. Give me a second, and I'll take you through some of those important pages that I think we really should know. Take a look at those and kind of go over some of those important maps while we have a little bit of time here. So let me just go ahead and share. Okay, here it's going to come up here in a second. I'm just going to share my entire screen with you guys. All right, now I'm going to jump to the textbook. So let's take a look at some of these things. Hopefully you can see them as well as I can. First of all, I think that this map right here about the different Roman provinces, this map right here is going to be important because it shows you where Gaul was, for example. Here's Judea down here. Egypt was a Roman province. Anatolia, which is modern day Turkey. Spain, right? So all of those different regions. And then up here in the green, this would be like where the Germanic peoples were from, right there. Yeah. Okay, this map right here shows you Hannibal's pathway in attacking Rome. And then there's the Battle of Zama right there that we talked about. That blue line is how Scipio attacked Carthage. So that's also an important map to take into consideration. Here's the information about Pompeii, which showed you those plastered people that had been underneath the ash for thousands of years. And then archaeologists have discovered those. We talked about that in class. Here's the map that I mentioned that will help you for the first AP portion. You got the map. This one's about the spread of Christianity. So this shows you the different regions of how Christianity spread. There is a map about trade. I'll find it in a second, but this map's important here. These are the maps I was talking to Pearson about. This map shows you in the key all the different Germanic tribes and where they attacked from and when they attacked. So this was very important in understanding why Rome became weakened by those Germanic attacks. You can see when they were coming, where they came from. I want to find the trade map that I was referring to. Here it is. All right, so this map shows you the different items that Rome traded and where they came from. So you see that most goods that the Romans were bringing in were grain, olive oil. Slave trade was a big one from all the different regions. wine, metals like gold and silver. Textiles are clothing. Textiles are like cloth and other wool, things of that nature would be considered silk, which came from China. Those are all examples of textiles. And then, of course, wild animals. We learned that, of course, the Romans utilized these wild animals in the Colosseum. And they also had some zoos that people could also study. Okay, I'm going to come back to my normal look right here. Okay. Well, you know, okay. Yeah. Jewish diaspora, I did cover it. It's basically how the Romans invaded Jerusalem, took it over in 6 AD, and then forced the Jewish population out. And the reason they did that is because the Jewish people were trying to fight and rebel against them. They were trying to defend their home territory and keep control of it. Christianity spread. We said a lot of factors led to the spread. You want to know what those factors are, like the letters of Paul, also the Roman roads, and Christianity being a very accepting faith as well. Definitely went over this one. Yep, definitely went over that one. Okay. I think we're good. We've been on for 42 minutes. Noah, I just had it up there and I didn't actually look at the page numbers, but you can easily find the page numbers by searching through the chapter. That might be a good little expedition for you to do. It's all in the chapter there. Shouldn't be that difficult. Why did he move the capital city from Rome? Talking about Constantine. Well, at that time, because Rome had expanded into places like Judea, Egypt, and Anatolia, the city of Byzantium, which eventually became Constantinople, was more centrally located throughout the entire Roman Empire. Also, to be honest with you, the empire in the east was more wealthy, and it started to have a little bit more power at the time that it moved. Yes. Okay, hey, I want to wish you all best of luck tomorrow. Make sure that you're ready to go. Pray for the right things. Make sure you take a moment to say thank you to your parents. Remember that we're in this together. The realm is a family. So, your success, I feel good about, but also your failures kind of affect me too, right? So we have to work together. And I want to see some really good results on tomorrow's quiz paper. Make sure that you use this time wisely. Read through your notes several times through tonight, maybe tomorrow morning. If you have the advantage of using Seminar tomorrow, I strongly suggest using that time wisely as well. Thanks again to everyone for being here. I do appreciate you, and we'll see you tomorrow. God bless everyone.